Hello, you. Welcome to Neighborful at Night. We are here to help you lay down the burdens of this day and to get some rest. My name is Michael, and I'm the creator and host of Neighborful Station, a story-based meditation podcast set in a small town that's big enough for all of us. We gather tonight in solidarity with our family and dear friends in Minnesota, and with everyone else who is confronting injustice in the world right now. Many of us are surrounded by cold, snow, and ice. We are here to remember that no matter how hard this day has been, we are still connected, and that the world we are longing to create together is still possible. So let's take a moment now to get comfy. I invite you to close your eyes if that feels right to you, and to listen to my voice. Take a deep breath. As you leave behind the hustle of your day, take a moment now to think of someone who brings peace to your heart. This can be someone from your present or your past, someone who is still with us or not. It can even be someone that you don't know personally, but have seen out in the world. Think of how this person inspires you to seek peace in your own life, and take another deep breath. Let's widen that circle and think about all of the people in your life who have shown you how to be generous, courageous, and kind. These can be relatives or chosen family. They can be teachers, coaches, mentors, and neighbors. I want you to take 30 seconds right now and remember how these people have formed you with their love. I will keep the time. Thank you, friends. As we close out this meditation, I invite you now to stretch your arms and legs out a little, if that's comfortable for you, and let go of the tensions of the day. Each time we gather for Neighborful at Night, we have a show and tell with people from our community. Sometimes I will be sharing their stories, and sometimes they will be sharing their own. Tonight, I want to share a project with you called Walk Around Philadelphia, which is celebrating its 10th anniversary this year. It's a remarkable way of spending some time with fellow explorers, and it might inspire you to participate if you're local to Philly, or to try something similar where you are. Let's listen in as the creator of Walk Around Philadelphia, JJ Tissue, gives us a tour.
Walk Around Philadelphia is an opportunity to adventure and discover close to home. When you set out to walk the perimeter, you'll encounter shipyards and graveyards, junkyards and farmyards. You'll also come across highways and waterways, pipelines and prisons, streams and sewers, and probably some dead things. It's rare in our world to have an opportunity to walk side by side for long, uninterrupted periods of time away from our screens. This pilgrimage is an invitation to spend a dedicated chunk of time with ourselves and with each other, just our bodies and the city we live in. And while it sounds simple, it turns out that exploring the margins gives us a lot to think about. Along the way are opportunities to ponder themes of social and environmental justice, infrastructure and ecosystems, commerce and incarceration, indigenous history and colonization, development and decay, and of course, borders and boundaries. There's also important questions of privilege and accessibility. Who gets to walk where? So what does it mean to consider a city, not through its center core, but through its farthest margins and all that they hold? What does it mean to undertake a physical exploration of those edges, gaining embodied understanding of the size and complexity of its perimeter? And what does it mean to make such an experience more accessible, inclusive, and equitable? I hope that you'll join me in participating in Walk Around Philadelphia to start answering some of these questions for yourselves.
It's a really simple exercise, just walking around in a circle, the place that you call home. To know it, to at least know where you are. It's such a simple thing. So
I got to see parts of the city I'd never seen before, and I was able to become much more familiar with parts I had seen.
The perimeter walk was easily one of the highlights of the last 12 months for me.
My relationship with Philadelphia is pretty strong, and I consider it home. It's big and it's cool.
I participated in the perimeter walk for the same reason why I participate in most things, which is to develop relationships with people that I care about and I'm interested in.
As an immigrant, I think a lot about what it means to belong. What are the factors that make you part of a group? And what are the points where you realize you're on the outside? That idea of belonging and boundaries was what attracted me to the perimeter walk.
Walking is how I get to know a place, its contours, geography, architecture, history, and its people.
However, I was a little worried about the amount of walking we would have to do. In the end, it wasn't as hard as I had expected, and I'd do it again.
But something that I really loved about walking the perimeter is just how unique each section is.
At one point we saw like an eagle fly by, which is, I don't think I've ever seen that bird in person,
we were trying to decide, do we walk down the street or do we cut through the path through the woods? And so we tried the woods, and that was interesting.
And then we went down the creek, and then we went up the creek.
Philadelphia is a city of so many parts, and you feel that so deeply when you walk around it. Because
I really like sharing experience with people. Having something that connects us.
The walk let me feel like I was part of something bigger, and I felt happy and proud seeing every "You Are Here" sticker along the way.
I hope you have a good experience. It's definitely doable. It's possible. I'm still here. I'm still, I made it. And
now, take a moment and think back to a time in your life when you have helped create an event or a gathering that brought people together. It could be a block party with your neighbors, organizing a group hike, or a dinner party with dear friends. Bring yourself back to that experience. Remember what it feels like to enjoy the company of people of good faith, and take a slow breath. All right, see if it feels good now to wiggle your fingers and toes and try to release any tension in your shoulders by holding them up by your ears for a moment and then letting them down. Next, I'd like to share a message from our neighbor line here at Neighborful Station. We have a voicemail box where our listeners call in and tell their stories from the real world of neighbors who have taken great care of them. Tonight's message comes from our friend Christy in Washington State.
This is Christy from Washington State, longtime listener, first-time caller. One of the most unexpectedly generous communities I've ever been a part of is the boating community. My husband and I lived on our sailboat for 8 years, and it is not your typical neighborhood, but in Seattle, lots of people live on their boats. And they, either live on their boats or spend weekends cruising between marinas and anchorages. And Somehow out on the water and when you're on boats, the social rules shift from land. It is not strange at all to invite somebody that you just met to dinner. Maybe they're tied up at the end of your dock, or maybe their boat is anchored in the same little cove that you're in. And often, like a quick go over and say hi turns into sharing a meal and on their boat, or who knows what it might be. But that's often the case. And there's just this sort of built-in hospitality and curiosity out there that feels pretty rare outside of the boating community, in my experience. I remember a specific anchorage in Mexico. We dinghied up to the one other boat that was anchored nearby to say hello and just get to know them. And we not only got invited aboard for dinner that night, but we had the best disco party ever on that boat that night with the fresh caught fish from that day. It was so fun. And so I guess that openness has really just stayed with me. And I try to live by those same principles, even though we're not living on a boat these days or on land, because that's the world that I want to help create. One where inviting somebody in just because you can is never considered too forward.
With Christy's message in mind, take a moment now to think back to a time when one of your neighbors has taken great care of you, especially someone you didn't know very well. This could be a recent experience, or it could be all the way back in your childhood. Remember what it felt like to know that you were supported when you really needed help, and take a deep breath. Now, let's have one more big stretch together. Tomorrow, we will be back here for another edition of Neighborful at Night, with a show and tell about the 50 States Dinner Series, which celebrates American culture in a very cozy way. I'm putting a link in the chat now so that you can add this show to your calendar. As we come to the end of this gathering, I invite you to stick around as we listen to a sleep edition episode of Neighborful Station. Tonight's episode is called Porch Fest. It's a town-wide event every summer in which your neighbors play music and create experiences to share with the town. The story will play for about 10 minutes, and then the soundscape of the town will continue to fill out a full hour. You might like to let the soundscape play if you're ready for bed, so you can fall asleep to the sound of the town, or you can just have some peaceful background noise as you take a little time away from your screens. If you'd like to set a sleep timer on your device, you could set it right now for 1 hour, and it should switch off just before the soundscape runs out. Note that if you're on a phone or tablet, the audio from the broadcast will cut out when you switch apps to set up your timer. But we will still be here. Just come back to your browser or the YouTube app wherever you're listening right now and watching after the timer starts running. I want to thank you again for joining us and for taking this opportunity to rest. You are wonderful, just as you are, and you deserve a world that lives up to your own goodness. May you find ways to walk with your neighbors in solidarity and fellowship. May you always remember that you are surrounded by the love that has formed you. And may you grant yourself the gift of rest tonight. Thank you, friends, and good evening. Welcome to the sleep edition of Neighborful Station. At the end of the story, the soundscape will continue to play so that you can fall asleep. Sweet dreams. Saturday afternoon, the ceiling fan on your porch is spinning in overdrive to move the humid air of the first full day of summer. You are sitting on your porch with a small group of neighbors, both adults and kids, making friendship bracelets. Today is Porch Luck in Neighborful Station. On this day, you and others welcome the town onto your front porches for a potluck of experiences, ranging from music to crafts to show and tell. Mason, a tall middle schooler from down the street, holds his bracelet out in front of you and says, "Can you help me with the part that opens and closes?" You say, "Yes, of course. It's called a clasp. Let me show you." You pick up a magnetic clasp from the organizer in front of you on the coffee table. You and your visitors are all sitting cross-legged around the table on the floor of the porch. As you listen to the gentle rhythm of neighbors sifting through beads, you thread the bracelet wire through the rings on each end of the clasp, crimping everything into place. You click the magnetic clasp together, and you look down on your handiwork, taking a satisfied breath. Mason says, "Thank you. This looks sick." You say, "I love the pattern you made with the orange and pink." Mason hops up from his position at the table, waves goodbye to the group, and shuffles down your front stairs, looking at his phone as he goes. No sooner has he left your porch than another kid from the neighborhood sits down in his place. She says, "Hello, you. I'm Olivia. This is so cool." You say, "Welcome, Olivia. I'm glad you stopped by. Now, what would you like to make?" Your bracelet making session lasts 2 hours. The fire station in town sounds its siren once every 2 hours on the day of Porch Luck, from noon until sunset, letting everyone in town know when it's time to start or finish sharing their experience. You give the last stragglers on your porch the time they need to finish up their work as you clean up the stray beads and bits of wire that are strewn across your table. When you have finished cleaning up, you put on some sunscreen and your floppy hat before venturing into the day. All around you, neighbors are hanging out on each other's porches. You hear a bluegrass band in the distance. You smell fresh pizza and wood smoke wafting down from the other end of your block. You stand on the sidewalk in front of your house, feeling the heat of the concrete coming through the soles of your sneakers, and you take a deep breath. The Jessicas have invited you to stop by this afternoon, so you head to their houses around the corner from yours. They live next to each other, with a huge shared playset in their backyard. They wave to you as you walk up to the porch of one of their houses, where a handful of kids are playing with a litter of puppies. The first Jessica, who took over from you on the support wagon for the Cumberland March, says, "Hello, you. We're fostering these puppies for a few weeks. Would you like to hold one?" You say, "Yes, absolutely. How old are they?" Before Jessica can answer, one of the kids pipes up and says, 6 weeks today." You sit down on the floor of the porch inside the play fence that has been set up around the litter and their guests. The puppies are climbing across the legs of the human visitors, hopping up and down with excitement. The other Jessica, who gave you a tour at the Union Hall several weeks ago, steps out the front door of the house. She says, I'll be surprised if they make it the whole 2 hours without a nap. They don't exactly have a lot of stamina. Sure enough, after about 20 more minutes, the puppies start clamoring for milk, which the two Jessicas and their kids feed to the litter. One by one, the puppies fall asleep in their arms. You quietly excuse yourself, stepping over the play fence and stretching out your arms and legs with a yawn of your own. From the edge of the porch, you see Fritz, the van driver, standing in his front yard across the street, in the middle of a rough circle of strange-looking metal boxes sitting on stands. Each of the boxes has a stovepipe sticking out of it. You head over to take a closer look. Fritz sees you coming and calls out, "Rustisch, you! Are you hungry?" You say, "Yes. The puppies were just getting fed and I was getting jealous." Fritz says, "Today we're making the traditional Flammkuchen. Ah, this is my wife, Anna." A woman with graying hair at her temples waves a shy hello. Fritz starts to open one of the boxes and says, "These are stainless steel pizza ovens. We make them ourselves at the shop. I could give one to you?" Anna says, "Please, yes, we have far too many," and gives Fritz a pointed look, which he ignores. You say, "Thank you. I'd be happy to have one. I will need some lessons on how to use it." Fritz takes a metal pizza peel and removes a large flatbread from inside the oven, which he sets atop a platter on a nearby wooden table. The flatbread is covered with sliced mushrooms and onions, set in a light-colored cheese. The edges of the crust are bubbly and dark from the heat of the oven. Anna sprinkles chopped scallions across the top and says, "Now we just give it a moment to rest." You stand over the cooling Flammkuchen, noticing the fragrant and earthy aroma of its steam, and you take a slow breath. Anna hands you a pizza cutting wheel and a plate. She says, "You are the guest of honor. Help yourself." You cut the rectangular flatbread into squares, lift up one for yourself, and take a bite. Salty and melty and crunchy. Fritz comes over, pizza peel slung over his shoulder, and says, "Well, what do you think?" You say, "I think porch luck is my new favorite day of the year."